The numbers never lie, and the numbers say Baylor football is going to be disappointing this fall.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, Bears fans. Welcome to another episode of Locked On Baylor, brought to you by Monarch Money and part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. I'm your host, Cam Stewart of ESPN Central Texas and the Cam Show on YouTube. And joining me, as always, a little midweek treat for you guys on Wicker Wednesday, Sydney Wicker of KCEN Channel 6. We are looking ahead at Baylor football season. What else? But an interesting statistical breakdown of why Baylor is not going to be as good as all of us think. Well, we'll have a discussion about it anyway. And can Baylor counteract that by having the best backfield in the Big 12? Do they already have that? And we know where basketball is going on the road, who's coming into Foster Pavilion, and who they're playing twice. So what are the games we're circling on our calendars for the 2025-26 Baylor basketball season? All that and more coming up on this episode of Locked On Baylor. Sydney, we like numbers. Like we do. I don't think we don't like math, but we do like numbers in our business. Sometimes the numbers get a little muddy though, right? Like sometimes we get too deep in the weeds and it becomes the most confusing looking thing ever. Just in general, do you agree with that?
Yeah, of course. Numbers are kind of like what we live by. Like we like to know. That's how you know who's the best because statistically it tells you. Like it just makes sense.
The numbers never lie, some would say. And if they throw a billion numbers at you on one graph, some are bound to lie. I'm going to put it up here. For those of you watching on YouTube, just please don't be alarmed. We're going to go through this. But this piqued my interest. And for those
this
of
is
you
everybody's fear. Like you walk into math class and you're like, oh my God, I quit. I quit school.
Like it, honestly, this is my fear looking at it, Sydney, of like, I talk about sports every single day. I talk about this team every day. Am I supposed to know this? Am I supposed to know what any of this means? It's a lot. Okay, so go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, this is why we got degrees in communication, journalism, English. No math. I think I took one math class in college, so I really haven't had constant math in my life. Since high school. And when you sent this to me, I was like, Cam, what are we looking at?
Well, I said the same thing. I said the same thing to you that I will say to the viewers and to the listeners who aren't even seeing this right now. But this is a graph of going through Baylor's entire 2025 season with a deep statistical breakdown here. And you're looking at the rest of the conference. You're looking at things like win shares, defensive and offensive efficiency. But what I'm looking at, Sydney, and what I want everyone to look at that's watching on YouTube is this column to the left, which you can't see my cursor, but this column to the left, right to the left of the week. And it's got the win percentage for Baylor in each of those games. I promise I'll take down the graph in a second here. But if we're doing the quick math here, just games that they are favored in, according to the K-Ford ratings, they are favored in, let's see, 7 games. So the K-Ford ratings has Baylor at 7-5 in a big-time, hyped-up 2025 football season. Before even parsing through that, because we know that that's going to take a second. 7-5. That seems a little dramatic, Sydney. I know I'm biased, but it seems a little dramatic to me.
Well, it's a little shocking when last week we were talking about how this is the number one team in the Big 12 according to this rankings list. So it's just like, where are we getting these numbers from? Like, what are we seeing here? It kind of surprised me overall.
And it would come with a rough start, by the way. I'll put it back on real quick. They have them as only a 7% chance to win against Auburn, who they'll probably both be ranked pretty similarly, right? I think we both think somewhere in the 20 to 25. Then at SMU, you only got a 25% chance to win, buddy. And then against Arizona State, it's pretty slim, 51% for Arizona State, which means 49 for Baylor. And so that has them at 1-3 to start the year with their lone win coming over Samford. Now, Sydney, we know that this is a tough stretch to start the schedule. Yeah. Like there's no way to sugarcoat that. If they're 1-3 at that point, barring a major injury, like the K Ford ratings have here. Barring a major injury, they're 1-3 going into that game in Stillwater, second week of the Big 12 schedule. Would that be like a colossal failure?
I don't know if we can call it a colossal failure, but we can definitely say it's the unexpected.
Disappointing.
I still think there's a lot of life there, though. You're just already at that point probably not going to be in a playoff conversation or in a Big 12 championship conversation, which that's when it really starts to feel like that's a disappointment then. Because what else are you playing for at that point?
Yeah, and at 1-3, like almost regardless of who your next opponent is, when you're at 1-3, even if you're losing to 3 good teams, like as a fan, you're thinking, which games are we even going to be favored in? Like, which ones are we checking off as W's at this point? Like, you haven't seen anything impressive happen. It's much like actually what we saw 2 years ago. They were 1-3 with their one win coming against an FCS opponent, which is what K Ford has them at right now. 7-5. All right, I'm gonna put this up one more time, Cindy, just for you and I to go off of.
Yeah.
Because I would love your answer on this and then provide my own. Which of these on here do you see of a game that they're not favored in, and you're like, really? Like, I actually like their chances just on paper looking at it in June.
I think I would say probably the biggest one I disagree with has got to be at TCU. I don't know. I know it's a big game, and I know it's going to be hard to play at TCU, and it was a hard game when it was at home for Baylor last season.
Sure.
But I just feel like I don't want to say there's nothing special about this TCU group because I don't want to be proven wrong, but I'm like, what have we seen from TCU that makes them say that they can beat Baylor? Like, I don't agree with that. But if I could just pick one more, the SMU game, 25%, I feel like that, I just do not know what SMU team you think you're going to see in the fall. That's going to be the same one that was in the playoff conversation last year. So for that to only be 25%, even if they were the underdogs in that one, shouldn't it at least be closer to like 40% chance? Like, come on.
Yeah, that is very low. And I think the TCU one jumps off the page for that as well. Not just that they're not favorites, but they give them only a 37% chance to win against TCU. And you said it, like, this team struggles with TCU. They struggle playing up there historically. But if we're just looking at the numbers of this, like, we're not looking at how they look against them historically. We're looking at the numbers here. Baylor was a better team than TCU last year, albeit not significantly better. They were better, though, and they beat them head-to-head. And TCU doesn't bring as much back as Baylor does. And you're giving them a 37% chance. Like, that's how confident you are in TCU. That's not a terrific home field advantage. Neither is Baylor, I would say, most of the time. That is wild. 37%. That was the one that jumped off the page for me. So now, of course, this will get clipped after they lose to TCU, and it will just be all fun and games in Baylor Bearland. But
don't
7-5.
Say that, Cam. I don't want my face to be associated with that.
I just need to get ahead of this, Sydney. Okay, it's me getting out in front of it. 7-5 to me. That's just I don't know. Obviously, it can happen, but if we're just using our logical sports brains here, they should be better than 7-5. But anyway, let me know what you guys think. Let me know in the comments below what your record prediction is. We'll certainly ask for that before August 29th, for sure, before Baylor kicks it off against Auburn. But let us know in the comments below. Like, subscribe on YouTube, and find us wherever you get your podcasts as well. Here's something that could get Baylor better than 7-5 in 2025. Let's talk a little bit about the running backs. We've talked so much about quarterback and receiver, but Baylor might actually have the best stable of running backs in the entire conference. We'll tell you why. Coming up next on Locked On Baylor. Let me ask you a question. You ever look at that bank account and just wonder, where the heck did all my money go? All right. Your streaming services, dining out, online shopping, it's easy to lose track of where all that's going. That's where Monarch Money comes in. It's your personal CFO, and it gives you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money ain't just a budgeting app. So if you're thinking that, throw that thought out the window, okay? It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, your investments, and spending in one place. So you're not just managing your wealth anymore, managing your money, you're starting to build wealth. Okay. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track your spending, even plan long-term goals. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDON, COLLEGE, for half off your first year. Okay, so allegedly Baylor's going to go 7-5 this year. We were all hoodwinked, bamboozled into thinking that they might be a little bit better than just barely above average. And the reason why we're thinking they are a 9-3, 10-2, 11-1 team is mainly the quarterback. Like, let's be honest with it, Sidney Wicker. It's probably because of the quarterback. Like, obviously, you bring back a lot of talent, but we've seen with Baylor in that exact scenario, if you don't have the quarterback, you don't have anything. Okay, you don't have anything if you don't have the quarterback. So we've been hyping up Sawyer Robertson, but really, we forgotten a little bit, Sydney? Have we forgotten about how good these running backs are? Have I?
I haven't forgotten because they're
Yeah,
like
sure.
my favorite group in core to talk about. These are like all my favorite guys are the running backs. I also feel like if I played football, like I'm small enough, I could be a little running back. So maybe my heart just like goes out to them a little more. But come on, Cam, get with the times. Don't forget about these guys.
I know I've been ignoring them too much. We talk about the questions on defense. We talk about how good Sawyer is. In fact, I'll have a segment tomorrow about how good Sawyer is. And kind of lost in the fold was that these running backs were a huge part of it too. Well, that's not the word. I'm glad that I'm probably one of the only ones who forgot about it because we got this top 5 list coming out. It's a list summer, guys. It is a list summer from PFF, the highest graded returning running backs in the Big 12. Bryson Washington comfortably at number 1 in the conference, and sitting down there at number 5 to round out the only school with 2 in the top 5, Dawson Pendergrass, just percentage points behind number 3 on the list. So he's right there with the upper echelon of running backs in this conference. Baylor has 2 of them. Like, how much of a weapon is that for this Jake Spavital offense that not only do you have the quarterback, but you've got 2 guys who can carry the load in the backfield?
So huge. Like, I cannot emphasize that enough. I'll never forget, I think the first, maybe it was the second, I can't remember. Whenever Baylor played Oklahoma State last year, I know that was one of my first times like being at McLean, and that was a huge game for Dawson. Like, we saw him totally explode, and I was like, this kid, like, nobody can catch this kid. Every time he sees just a little window, he's somehow like squeezing through and getting there. And he is just like such a fun threat. I think the 2 of them together bring such a dynamic threat. And to have those guys both there able to do whatever you need them to if the ball's not flying through the air, that's perfect. Or you know what? They can catch too. So they've proved that they can do a little bit of whatever you need them.
And that is a good point about that Oklahoma State game because you really saw them both get their opportunities throughout the season. Like, I think of a team like Tech, which was a little bit better up front than TCU was, which is another Bryson Washington example, and definitely better than Oklahoma State was. And Bryson kind of thrived on that, a team that was pretty good at plugging up the middle, that was physical in the middle, and he loves that, right? He can bounce off tackles and everything, and not that Dawson Pendergrass couldn't, but I can't remember who it was. I'm very sorry. It was someone in the local media pointed out during the Oklahoma State game. He was like, Oklahoma State's defense stinks, and they have a bunch of guys that freelance, and Bryson Washington is like a hit the hole guy. Like, he's going. You tell me where the play is going, I'm going there. Dawson Pendergrass can still break off tackles, but he's a little bit more patient. And so he sees guys just running around like chickens with their heads cut off, and he then takes off. And he has a huge game against Oklahoma State. So there's different scenarios for each of these guys. And if you look at the stats, just the pure stats of it, which we know stats can sometimes lie, as we talked about in the first segment, Baylor's middle of the pack running the football last year in the Big 12. They're 7th in the Big 12 in running the ball. And I was surprised to see that today when I was doing research for the show. I was like, felt better than that. It just felt like they were. They were also a pretty good passing team, so that definitely plays into it. But you look at the teams ahead of them, okay? Kansas State, Kansas, Arizona State, Cincinnati. That's 4 of the 6 teams ahead of them last year. Those 4 teams do not bring back their starting running back. Baylor does not also bring back their starting running back. They bring back both of them. They bring back 2. So it's not crazy that to think that even if Sawyer Robertson has another big year like we expect, they could be in the top 5 for overall rushing in the Big 12 in 2025. And not to bring up kind of a sore subject, but Sydney, we also saw how important Bryson Washington was to this offense in the Texas Bowl when he goes out with an injury. You almost don't know what you got till it's gone. That really proved that Sawyer Robertson can still chuck the thing. He can keep you in a game, but if you don't have that dynamacy that your running game brings, it might be all for naught for a team like Baylor,
And I think that speaks to just what a pivotal part those guys play in every game. Like, yes, it's great that Sawyer can absolutely sling it and do so much, but you got to have it on every facet and every side of the ball. You have to have these guys ready to go. And so, I think that also showed how much of Bryson's leadership was necessary, especially for a guy who just like really emerged last season. So to have another year in the system and like ready to go, this is huge. I saw ESPN had him like in the top 10 too of running backs like overall, which is huge. So it's not just in the Big 12. It's like we're talking in the entire nation. Bryson's a top 10 running back. And not only that, you've got another really good guy not that far behind him.
Yeah, and to be honest, I don't know if you can I think you can count on one hand how many returning running backs are better than Bryson Washington, and I'm not even sure you'd fill the whole hand, to be honest. I really think he's right up there. I think he's going to be in Doak Walker discussions. And to get to the next point about Pendergrass, this is a guy who I'm looking down this list. I don't know an exact number or anything, Sydney, but it feels like this guy could be a legit, very impactful number 1 running back for pretty much, 10, 12 other teams in this league.
Absolutely.
And we thought he was going to be the starter last year.
Yeah.
And it's like you basically had 2.
Yep.
So, wow.
Yeah, and both of them took their moments when they needed to. Like, there was games where they both balled out, but there was also games where, like, they each had their, like, shining moments. Like I said, that Oklahoma State game, I felt like that was a really big shining moment for Dawson, and that was, like, an eye-opener for me, too, because everything I had talked about up until that point was pretty much Sawyer and Bryson. And then I was like, Dawson? Like, who's this guy? What's he doing? And so I think having that flashy aspect of another guy who's just a default, like he's ready at any given point. And I love having 2 really good running backs. Obviously Michigan loves their running backs. They're like, I love having multiple good guys that can run it. So I think it's so fun to see this, especially from Baylor. And we love the offense and we love watching the wide receivers ball out, but I just think there's something so fun about these guys and just what they can bring.
And credit to both these guys for sticking around, by the way, which is what we have to do in 2025 in college football. But like we talked about it a few weeks ago, and we just talked about kind of the transfer portal in general for a school like Baylor. It's almost a double-edged sword when you start to win, because then these guys break out and they get big money offers to go play somewhere else. Like certainly that would have come across Bryson Washington's and Dawson Pendergrass's desk. And the other like part of the third edge of the sword is that, when there's a log jam at a position, it's tough to build depth because these guys say I can go and start somewhere else. Dawson Pendergrass and Bryson Washington withstood both of those things. They're on the roster. They're going to be toting the rock for Baylor this year. Man, that's exciting.
So exciting. I think a little better than 7-5.
I think so. Maybe it's because the channel's called Locked On Baylor, but I do think it's a little better than 7-5. I'm hoping that Baylor basketball will improve from where they were last year. And maybe that is a bit of a pipe dream, but Scott Drew's got something here. He's got a top 20 transfer portal class. What are the games that we now have circled on the calendar? Let's talk about that next on Locked On Baylor. All right, it feels like a far cry even from football season at this point, but it's definitely a far cry from basketball season. It feels like we're just kind of recovering from the end of last basketball season and all the fallout from the couple of weeks afterwards. But Sydney, we did get the pairings, okay, and who Baylor basketball is going to play at home, on the road, some a little bit of both. If I can have my producer put the graphic up on the screen, as Cam Stewart puts it on the screen. Here you go. Home only, away only, home and away. I'm sure for those of you listening on the podcast, you have seen this by now. Sydney, it's a simple question for you. What are the games, or just one game, that you're looking forward to and circling on the calendar for this conference schedule?
This was tough for me, Cam, and I don't really know why. I just was like looking at it and I was like, I don't know what stands out to me the most that like I want to see again. But
Mm,
I think there's something about the CU game that just like I'm very intrigued to see how Baylor responds and what kind of CU team that we'll see next year. Losing on the
redemption.
road there was shocking and just like what the heck. I think we were all kind of through that one. We're like, we know Baylor's gonna win. Like we counted on that. And what a disappointment that it was. So I don't know. I just feel like there's something about that game that I've got circled on my calendar.
Okay, see you circled. We will see you there. That's got to be redemption. I don't think Colorado's getting much better this year. Not that we have huge expectations for Baylor, but that I think the word embarrassing was correct, was apt for that. Just totally out of nowhere. Even for a not very good Baylor team, they gave up the second conference win of the season for Colorado, who got to double their conference win total in one day in February. I got to take the low hanging fruit. I see BYU at home. That's going to be something real interesting. That's become a good matchup, obviously, overall, the last couple of years. You add in the fact that Rob Wright is now with BYU. You add the fact that it's in Waco and not in Provo. Well, we've seen, the not so prodigal sons return, LJ Cryer from UH 2 years ago, and now Rob Wright will have that opportunity this year. That's going to be an interesting atmosphere. That's going to be a lot of fun. Like that's going to be a packed house. That one could be one that a lot of Baylor fans are thinking of some different kind of revenge.
I swear, if it is a 9 p.m. tip off,
Oh,
I will be so frustrated.
it could be. It could
It
be.
very well could be. I'm totally fine if it's on a Tuesday at 7 p.m. But God, please, those 9 p.m. tip-offs are the worst. And also, like, for those at home who do watch the local news to see the highlights, game's not usually over. We can't show you anything at a 9 p.m. tip-off. So yeah, that's gonna be a good one. It's gonna be really
Score full
interesting to
screen.
see, yeah, how the Baylor fans react to seeing oh my gosh, why can't I think right now?
Rob Wright.
Yeah, seeing Rob Wright. My mind immediately went RG, and I was like, "What are you talking about? Wrong sport here." No, Rob Wright back in action, and it's gonna be something because they did not respond very well to LJ, and that was a whole different situation that had been a
Yeah.
long time coming. So
Yeah.
we'll see.
And if those guys want to play in the NBA, trust me, it gets worse. It gets worse. Baylor's fairly tame. Overall, can I cheat on one here, Sydney? I want
Okay.
to highlight a game that's not on here, so to
Yeah.
speak. You see the home only, and I'm going to go. Let's see, 5 spots down. I see a nice little Texas Tech logo.
Yeah.
Home only. I am excited to not have to go out to Lubbock. Same thing with BYU, by the way. Those are 2 very, very tough places to play in our conference. So I'm quite glad that Baylor gets to avoid those road trips. And maybe you get a split of one of those 2 teams at home. You do have to go to Kansas State on the road. You got to go to Iowa State on the road. You got to go to Houston on the road. Last thing on this, the home and away, the 3 that they protect this year: Iowa State, TCU, Houston. Think that's a good kind of regional stuff. Baylor, Iowa State kind of isn't, but you like that? Like keeping those
Yeah.
3?
Yeah, I don't mind them at all. I kind of think though. Well, I was surprised that Arizona was only a home one.
Yes. Yeah, you got them at both spots last year.
Yes. So I think that one like surprised me a little bit. But yeah, Houston and TCU both make sense to me, the home and away. Iowa State I was a little surprised by, but I'm glad that it's both home and away. I think if that one was just away, I'd be a little more nervous about. I don't know. I think it's just a tough place to play in any of those Midwest towns that are freezing cold and people have nothing better to do than go watch some basketball on a Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday night, whatever it is.
Mm.
So, yeah.
And for you Kansas Jayhawks fans, it might finally be a bounce back year because you don't get the boogeymen. You don't face Baylor in Waco, where you haven't won in forever, since pre-COVID. I want to say 2020, which is like a week before COVID. That game only one matchup this year, just like last year, but this flips to Fog Allen Fieldhouse. So maybe Bill Self won't quit on his team this year like he does. He's starting to make a yearly occurrence. But let us know what you guys are most excited for down in the comment section below. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, find us here and wherever you find your podcasts as well as the
KCEN 6+ app.
bang. Sydney, thank you once again for joining on this Wicker Wednesday. Always appreciate having you.
Thanks for having me, Cam. So fun talking Baylor and keeping me busy. You help keep me on my toes too, because you help remind me what's going on, who's top 5, who's under projected. You keep me informed.
I'll find the haters. That's all I'll say. I'll find the haters. And thank you to the non-haters that follow us and watch today and every day. We will see you tomorrow on another episode of Locked On Baylor.